allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda. I don't know of any changes, so
I would make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Motion. All in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approve minutes of the May meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the May meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Who was the second?
Linda.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, presentation of the National Flood Insurance. Mark Mason.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, it's starting to kick on. Go back to my presentation. Yeah, if you want to flip the lights, yeah, that'd be great. There we go. Switch this over a little bit. There we go. I do have a copy of the presentation in your little packets as well. I'd like to follow along. But anyway, my name is Mark Macy, and I'm an engineer with the South Dakota Office of Emergency Management in Pierre. And I'm here this evening to talk about the National Flood Insurance Program. Why am I here this evening talking about the NFIP? Well, it's because your guys' city has been mapped for flood risk for the first time. Okay, Union County has flood maps out, but the city of Alcester has never been mapped before. They're redoing the 27 counties in the eastern part of South Dakota, and Union and Clay counties are the first two counties that are getting completed. And so you guys are, like I said, are getting mapped for the first time. In a couple slides, I'll show you what this map is going to look like. But there's some communities in Union County that are actually really happy that things are getting remapped. North Sioux City, Ted Cherry, and Dakota Dunes, Jeff Dooley are really excited about these new maps because the base flood elevation of the Big Sioux River in their communities is actually lowering by 4 feet. Now, floodplains, special flood hazard areas, it's not to say you can't build in these, but you have to follow certain building requirements. And one of those is if you choose to build in a floodplain, you have to build to that base flood elevation. So for communities like North Sioux City and Dakota Dunes, if that value lowers by 4 feet, for a lot of projects and all that, that's a lot less fill that has to get brought in to be able to, meet that base flood elevation requirement and things of that nature. But like I said, your guys' community is getting mapped for the first time. Well, now the mission of the NFIP, and these are some FEMA slides, are just to educate property owners regarding flood risk. You guys don't need, FEMA people from Region 8 in Denver, Colorado to come out and tell you what areas are low lying and get flooded and, what ones aren't. You guys are kind of aware of that, but for new people that come in, they can pull up flood maps and see where the riskier areas are. The NFIP does provide flood insurance. Right now, if anyone in the city of Alcester would want a flood insurance policy, they wouldn't be able to get it through the National Flood Insurance Program. There are some private insurance agents that deal in flood insurance. Not all of them do, and that would be able to offer it. But like this spring and March, April, all the private insurance companies in this area stopped actually selling insurance policies because there's a lot of damages coming in, a lot of claims coming in. They're having to do payouts, and so they weren't, accepting any new policies, things of that nature. The National Flood Insurance Program through FEMA doesn't have that little cutoff. If they're doing a whole bunch of payouts, they're going to say, hey, we're not taking any more policies. No, it doesn't work like that. They're always selling policies. But, it's to accelerate recovery from floods. Like everything, if you have some insurance and you do get damages, be a little quicker to get back rather than taking out a loan. Mitigate future flood losses and reduce the potential or personal and national costs of flood disasters. Well, anyway, why join the NFIP? Well, there's kind of a long list of things here, but the first one, if you join, citizens will be able to get a flood insurance policy if they feel that they have a risk. Like I said, you guys aren't participating in the program right now, so if someone would want to have a flood insurance policy, they would be able to get it. And really, there's no cost to the NFIP. There's a little cost associated with, someone in the local government office kind of regulating the ordinance that you'd have to have in place. But like I said, there's no, upfront payment you have to do to be able to join the program. There's just an ordinance that you have to pass, a simple resolution of intent, and an application form. So, but there's also increased availability of certain types of federal disaster assistance if you do participate in the NFIP. Like right now, March, April flood events in the state. I mentioned 58 of 66 counties had damages. They met those the threshold, the individual threshold for damages, so their counties could declare. And if that disaster gets declared by the Trump administration White House office, being that state has an enhanced hazard mitigation plan, we will get 20% of that total dollar estimate coming in to do hazard mitigation projects. And if you're not in the National Flood Insurance Program, not one of those participating communities, you wouldn't be able to put in a project application to be able to possibly access some of this extra money that we'll have. And so, right now, the damage assessment that came in was for like $50 million for infrastructure damage. The state of South Dakota would be able to get 20% of that $50 million to do certain types of hazard mitigation type programs, like emergency generators, maybe fix some other road washouts or some early type of water course type project, things of that nature. So there is some additional benefits of being in the NFIP rather than that. But how it works. There's first, it's a partnership between local and federal governments. There's flood insurance, there's floodplain management regulations, which there's an ordinance, and then there's hazard identification, the mapping program. So first, the local role is to adopt and enforce the minimum federal regulations for floodplain management. In your packets, I have a copy of an ordinance. The one thing you can do, you have to pass a flood damage prevention ordinance. Now in South Dakota, we have 230 communities right now that participate in the program. That's cities, towns, and counties. And so there's not a state level ordinance, but there's 230 ordinances in South Dakota at the local level that regulate floodplain development. And this ordinance only pertains if you're in the special flood hazard area or that 100-year floodplain. So, the one thing you have to do is pass the ordinance, and but that ordinance doesn't pertain to you if you don't live in the special flood hazard area. So that's the nice thing about it. But like I said, it's a voluntary program. Communities choose to join the program, but if you choose not to join the program, then flood insurance isn't available, in your community. But it's all about knowing your own risk anyway. I mean, I see that, driving through town, I see there's some pretty good, topography here. There's probably not a lot of areas of town that get standing water. I mean, you have some lower areas, but for the most part, it looks like you have some hills and stuff. Not a lot of areas to pond. I'm from Aberdeen, so I mean that town's just, a flat piece of ground with water just, waiting to build up and stand. But it's all about knowing your risk. And so if you're in the program, people can choose to have a flood insurance policy. So be it. So the federal role, they actually provide the maps, and they provide the federally backed flood insurance, and then they'll provide some technical assistance, to partner with communities. Because once you do get a special flood hazard area, you do somewhat have to regulate the development in there. Then the main thing is just making sure structure is built at that base flood elevation. When will it flood? A lot of times we hear that, that term 100-year floodplain, that means it's only going to flood, once every 100 years. But it's more or less, like a probability. When they say 100-year floodplain, there's actually 1 in 100 chance of it flooding, any given year, that given year. And then the column on the right, it says percent chance of, one of these events occurring during a 30-year mortgage. You actually have about a 25% chance of getting a 100-year flood event, at your house and all that, but these are just some generalized numbers. Okay, so the main thing is that this is the new flood insurance rate map in the city of Alcester. And so, this is hot off the presses. FEMA came to the county in January to present these results, and there's going to be a 90-day official review comment period on these flood insurance rate maps, and that's going to start here probably in a week or two, go 90 days. But this is what FEMA has prepared for your community. As you can see, there's just a little bit of floodplain in the very northern section of town, which doesn't look like there's any development in that little section. And then there's a swath on the bottom part, the very southern part of town, and that's all you have for what's called a special flood hazard area, and that's a 100-year floodplain. Like I said, there's no limitations. You still can build in those blue areas, but there's going to be a base flood elevation in those areas that that person would have to have their lowest finished floor constructed above. Does anyone have any questions on this project?
Lowest finished floor, is that main floor, or is that included basement?
You know, it would, yeah, lowest finished floor, that could be basement or main floor, but yes, the lowest finished floor has to be above the base flood elevation. You can have, sometimes you can have some below grade crawl spaces if those have like flood vents installed and all that, but yeah, if you're in the blue and you want to have like a finished basement, that basement would have to be above that base flood elevation number.
How does that apply to a bin, grain bin?
A grain bin? That would be a non-residential structure. So the grain bin could have a finished floor below the base flood elevation, but it would need to be constructed of flood resistant materials. And most grain bins are what, steel and all that. So that'd be fine. And it would just need to be you know, watertight for the areas below the base flood elevation, and flood resistant materials, so treated timbers or like steel or something of that nature. But grain bins, there's residential and non-residential sections of an ordinance. And so non-residential, those things can be below base flood elevation and flood proofed, and unfortunately residential structures cannot be. They have to be at or above base flood elevation.
Is concrete a flood?
Yeah,
barrier?
that's a flood resistant material.
Okay.
Yeah, concrete is
Alright.
that. So, yeah.
And those bins down there are, the base of them is like 4 feet above the ground level.
Right.
Oh, okay. And it's not marked on this map here, but there's electronic files, and so we'll be able to pull it like into what's called GIS or Geographic Information System. And you'll be able to click on that little shape file, the boundary of the floodplain, click in there on any certain type spot, and it will tell you what that base flood elevation is. So if someone comes in, hey, I want to build there. Like I said, you're not telling them you can't build there, they just have to build above the BFE if they're putting in a residential structure, or if it's not residential, it has to be flood resistant materials and watertight to the base flood elevation level. So
they can give you the elevation of each lot individual, right? So if
yeah,
somebody's gonna build there, they know what the elevation was.
yeah.
And then they can also give you the flood elevation at the same time. How deep you could go, or how much you would have to raise your
Correct.
building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, these new maps, FEMA used LiDAR data that was available for the eastern part of the state. It's just a type of like digital elevation model and all here. So yeah, you could click on the aerial photo, get that approximate elevation, and then be able to click on that spot in the floodplain, and it will show you what that base flood elevation is, and you can tell a person, hey, it's, you know,
Okay.
to build up a flood, or I guess it's, you know, it's kind of case by case.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Type
each
thing.
lot would be different, pretty much.
But from my experience, you know, here in South Dakota, you guys have very minimal special flood hazard area within city limits. I mean, you do probably have some people, you know, just outside of city limits in some of those county areas but those areas were already probably mapped previously prior to, those areas were probably already mapped within the county going back to 2001. So the only new areas are the ones that probably on the northern portion of town. But all like, yeah, the city of Alcester had not been mapped by FEMA before. You guys just had was known as a NISHFA community, no special flood hazard area community. But really now, looking at it, and these maps haven't gone into effect yet. Like I said, here in about a week, they're gonna start the official 90-day review comment appeal period for these maps. But, you guys don't have hardly any floodplain whatsoever. A little bit in the southern portion, and then, definitely that uninhabited area in the very northern part of town, kind of when you're coming in.
It's our industrial park area.
Okay.
There won't be residents there.
In the southern part?
No.
In the northern part? That's
Northern,
what that's
that's industrial
Okay,
park.
that's what industrial park then.
So if we don't get involved in this now, 5 years down the road, can we become part of this?
Well, if you don't get involved prior to the maps going effective, you will get put on the sanctioned list, and there's 34 communities in South Dakota that are on it currently. And those are communities that have been mapped by FEMA, that have some special flood hazard area, and chose not to participate and adopt the ordinance. And so, there's not any really huge ramifications, but if someone, would choose to buy a piece of property or something of that nature in that special flood hazard area, the lender would probably require the next person to have flood insurance, because any property in a special flood hazard area has mandatory flood insurance purchase requirements unless that piece of property is completely paid off. Like if you have your home paid off and you're in that blue area and all that, you don't have to have a flood insurance policy if you choose not to, if you don't feel that there's a risk. But if you're buying a house in the 100-year floodplain and you choose to get a mortgage from a federally backed lender, then flood insurance would be required. So that's why North Sioux City and Dakota Dunes they're really happy about these new maps that are going to be coming out here in 2020, just because their base flood elevations are going down. So a lot of their 100-year floodplain with those mandatory flood insurance requirements are getting switched over to what's known as a 500-year floodplain, or a shaded X floodplain, which has no mandatory insurance requirements. And those 500-year floodplains, the flood insurance policy rates are a little cheaper than being in a 100-year floodplain and all that. So, but like I said, and I provided a copy of the ordinance that you're only coming to play with the ordinance if you're in that blue area of the floodplain. That ordinance doesn't pertain to you if you're in one of these unshaded areas. It's just not applicable kind of type thing. So. But then, just want to cover a couple of these things here really quickly. For some local responsibilities, if you decide to build in this blue area, you have to go in and get a local floodplain development permit. And, I'd always be able to assist like that, because you probably wouldn't get too many people coming in looking for permits just in these few blue areas, but I always could assist drafting that. If you do any water course alterations in these special flood hazard areas, you'd have to do notification to surrounding communities. Have flood insurance rate maps here in the office, issue denied permits. I can help with many of these things, but like I said, there's some construction standards for being in the floodplain, flood-resistant materials. If it's a manufactured home, like a mobile home or something, it needs to be properly anchored if it's located in the floodplain. Utilities need to be elevated above the base flood elevation. But like you guys are gonna have a really small floodplain. But this flood insurance rate map is going to affect, if the community likes it or not. Eventually, after that comment and appeal period, FEMA will do a letter of final determination, what's called. They'll send a letter out saying that, hey, we received some comments and appeals, we didn't receive any comments, this is just kind of the status of it. And eventually this map will go effective. So you guys will have some special flood hazard area. But from what I've seen, all over South Dakota, your community has a pretty pretty good floodplain map. I mean, you don't have many areas whatsoever. And then one thing, and like I said, this is a FEMA PowerPoint presentation. Development, so any activity in that blue special flood hazard area would need a local floodplain development permit. So it's anything, kind of dredging, if you want a sidewalk, anything like that, but.
And those would come from our local office here.
Yeah, that would come from, I'm guessing probably Pat, something, or, someone would have to be doing that duty, but, and I assist a lot of communities on these floodplain development permits. Big thing is having the base flood elevation properly indicated on there, and then their final finish elevation is above the base flood elevation. For the most part, that's about it, just making sure that finished lowest floor elevation is higher than the base flood elevation. But, we have a lot of communities in South Dakota where the floodplain administrator is, just the finance officer, things of that nature. So, yeah, the state's able to provide, technical assistance if there's any permitting questions, or in your case, just from the small amount of permits you probably get. You probably wouldn't even get a permit application for those, those areas or something like that. We could definitely assist in getting the information needed. But, yeah, it's a very minor permit, very small permit.
What is the consequence to an individual that, whether they're ignorant of it or whatever, they just choose to build below that BFE?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to them? Are they forced to
Well,
remove the structure?
most of the time, those go under the radar, but when they don't is they put in, there's a thing called letter of map amendment, a LOMA application. And that's for something that's in like a blue special flood hazard area, but they feel like they've been unjustly included, like, oh, I'm on a piece of lot that's a little higher, shouldn't have been included on the map, but it's shown in. So they try to get removed from the floodplain. And then that's when FEMA gets dinged, because they review the elevation certificate. And then FEMA realized like, oh, yeah, they're in the floodplain, but it was a building violation. So in that case, it depends. If it was, since I've been in the position, if the house is 5 years or newer, they might have to make some modifications and retrofits and correct the building violation. And a lot of it's just putting in a couple of flood vents, and maybe that crawl space was just a little too deep. It was deeper than the FEMA allotted 4 feet, so it's springed up in their system. That's actually a basement. So if a crawl space is larger than 4 feet, FEMA's gonna say it's a basement. But usually, a lot of times with the building, if it's like a home that was constructed in 2003, and then there's some errors found, things of that nature, some violations, FEMA probably won't make them correct the issue. But I think it was in 2015, FEMA found some violations in the Dakota Dunes area. There are actually some homes that got paid out in like the 2011 flooding events. Had some $120,000, $130,000 payouts, but had finished floors that were significantly lower than the base flood elevation. So they had to do some retrofits to those structures. Dennis Enzi with Union County had to take care of that, but I think it was only 3 houses that had to do retrofits, and they were able to get those corrected and all that, but they were new enough construction to where FEMA wanted to take some type of action on it. So, that's a good question.
Okay, then, the ultimate question, what is the negative for us to do this? I mean, there's no real negative here. We may as well pass the ordinance and become members of the, what is it, NFIP?
NFIP. Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there
I
a
would
negative?
recommend, well, the one negative if you didn't join, if anyone tries to get a mortgage for a piece of ground or a piece of property in that blue special flood hazard area, they wouldn't be able to get like a flood insurance policy right now, being that you're not participating. So
That's only for residential places,
well,
or is it business?
it could be business. I mean, if
Okay.
it's the lender's decision. I mean, it's their money, but
So
If-
if they did build a bin out there,
I mean, before in Alcester, because you guys weren't mapped at all, didn't have any special flood hazard areas, you guys weren't ever gonna get dinged. You know, if someone applied for a mortgage, because you guys didn't have any floodplains here, you know, they'd never be required to get a flood insurance policy. But
Right.
now, and this will be 2020 before this map goes effective, so as of today, you guys don't have any floodplain. But in 2020, you will. And the exact date of when these maps go effective is kind of up in the air. It depends if, you know, they get adverse comments, any appeals, things of that nature, but, being that North Sioux City and Dakota Dunes are kind of happy with the maps, the way the maps are looking like their area, you know, I doubt any appeals would be coming in from HDR and Dakota Dunes and their engineering survey company. But, you know, I think for you guys, it would be good to join. I mean, it's not gonna be much work for Pat as floodplain, or whoever gets designated the floodplain administrator, because there's not much any special flood hazard area at all. That little bit in the southern part, the little northern portion, and then if anyone feels like they have risk, they can get a really cheap, they call them preferred risk policies, all those unshaded areas. You know, you can get a $400, $420 policy and be covered. You know, I noticed, you said you live in the Canton area, back in 2014 when you guys had that heavy rain event and flooded, there was a lot of people that, I think, was it Beaver Creek, was that the name of one of the flooding sources in Canton? You know, they were in unshaded, you know, floods just don't happen in the special flood hazard areas. Like over 30% of the flood claims that come in come from like unshaded areas, designated floodplains and all that. Yeah, there's some people that have a $420 insurance policy and they're able to get $120,000 to help, you know, fix their home and get back on their feet and all that.
And you've provided us with sample resolution and the sample ordinance. You would recommend that we approve both of those?
I gave the sample resolution, and you can kind of change the language on that a little bit, and I have that in a Word document format, so you can change that. And then, I gave the ordinance just as something to look at. The ordinance is going to be very similar to what Union County has in place, so you know, a little later, I could pull Union County's ordinance and maybe just to make things simple on the same page, you almost could probably just use what they have for their floodplain ordinance.
If somebody had a home in that flood area there and had the insurance through FEMA type thing, then is it like an insurance policy or is it a low interest loan type policy?
It's an insurance policy.
Okay, so it's not like a loan.
It's not like an SBA
Okay.
loan.
All right.
And the big thing about the flood insurance program, it doesn't have to be a presidentially declared disaster to get a payout. It just has to be like if you're in city limits, 2 adjacent properties have to be flooded, or if you're in like, you know, the rural country area, 2 acres of normally dry land has to be wet. So it doesn't have to, you know, like right now we're waiting on Trump's office to hopefully declare our disaster request that we put in for $50 million here recently. But to pay out for like a flood, it doesn't have to be a presidentially declared flood event. Your National Weather Service doesn't have to come in and say, okay, it was like a 100 or a 500-year storm. As long as just 2 adjacent properties, so like yourself and your neighbors, or if you're in the country, 2 acres or more, that's what's considered a flood, and insurance will pay out for those damages. So,
Thank you. Appreciate the information.
but, and I left some business cards here, and Pat has my contact information, so she definitely knows how to get a hold of me, but,
Well, the one question I haven't heard, there's no cost.
Correct. There's just, you know, kind of some personnel time for, you know, getting the ordinance in place and all that. But I think for your community, like once you get the ordinance in place, you're probably never really gonna have to look at it or really use it unless, you know, you get someone in that northern kind of what you said that was gonna be a commercial industrial park
It
area.
already is. I mean,
It already is?
I
Okay.
mean,
But it does allow our residents and business owners to apply on their own
Mm-hmm.
for,
Flood insurance.
To get flood insurance, if they feel
Yeah.
that they have a risk, if you guys join, then they can get they can get a flood insurance policy.
And the other thing it does do is it gives them, because you said, I mean, you can just point to that little square and see what that level is. I mean, now you know where you really need to build. It's not just, well, we think it's here. It is here.
Like the current Union County maps, they have a whole bunch of approximate A-zone blobs, so it's like it's a shapefile boundary of a floodplain, but it doesn't have a base flood elevation established to it yet, because it was done, over 20 years ago and all that. But this new information, being it's all digital, these shapefile boundaries and limits, you just plug it into GIS, and I have that software, so I could always help out a community and all that. You can click on a spot, and it'll take that base flood elevation out to like 3 decimal points, something of that nature, and it just,
Pretty accurate.
someone comes in, I want to build right here. That's fine. You click on it. Okay, just make sure you're above this elevation, and you're good to go. They'll fill out the tournament.
Okay.
So no, I mean, I deal with the National Flood Insurance Programs, but, I think for a community like yours, it would be, a slam dunk. There's no cost, just a little personnel time to, get the ordinance in place and eventually look at it. But like I said, you guys probably, your personal opinion, would you really have anyone building that southern floodplain, southern special flood hazard area?
that little square on the extreme southern end there, we've got a grain elevator down there. And they're building.
And the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and the fairgrounds.
fairgrounds.
But other than
So that's
that,
just non-residential?
Right.
Okay. That's fine.
That kind of-
And non-residential construction is totally different.
That's county.
That's county, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because we're in the county.
Okay, sure.
I live in the city of Pierre, right now the city of Pierre is doing a new Boys and Girls Club, and that's a non-residential structure and all that. They're putting it right in by the Capitol Creek. Well, it's delineated floodway, it's a crosshatch area and all that, so fortunately you guys don't have any floodways. But they're putting that in there, and they're putting in some, each door is like $8,000, but putting in some watertight doors. They don't want to bring in fill to make sure everything's above base flood elevation, so they're just making it flood-proof. And the most expensive part's the doors, but they're fortunately it's non-residential, so they don't have to bring in fill and then lift it above the base flood elevation, but they have to make it watertight.
A standard grain bin is not really waterproof. I mean, sure,
They
it's water
explode,
resistant.
Dan. Drive to Kansas City along I-29
Well,
and just look.
I'm
They
sure
explode when they get wet.
all of the grain inside expands to the point where,
It bursts the bin.
yeah,
And
So-
you could probably see
so-
200 examples going to Kansas City right now.
yeah. So
If
it's-
the road was closed.
That's true. You'd have to slide.
So, I mean, we're talking about residents, but there's more to it than residents here. So that's something to be aware of. The people up north there, if they build the wrong thing and it gets wet, I'll still abide by whatever it is because they were below the BFE. Or wasn't waterproof.
Well, in that industrial area up there,
Yeah.
that blue area, that is a pretty good waterway there. I wouldn't anticipate anybody wanting to build.
Building
there.
anything,
But
correct.
the possibility exists, anything can happen.
Anything could happen.
There's those crosshatch areas, like the Big Sioux River, that's a crosshatch regulatory floodway. That's where, before you build in an area like that, you have to show that your development is gonna cause a rise or an adverse impact on others. You have to do a no rise certificate. You don't have any of those crosshatch regulatory floodways in your flood insurance rate map. You just have the blue. Old term is 100-year floodplain, but it's called a special flood hazard area. But, and you can build in those. The thing with FEMA, you just have to build above that flood height elevation, the base flood elevation. It's not to say you can't develop in there, you just have to make sure it's above, yay high, whatever that number would be. So,
Okay.
okay, all right.
Well,
Well, thank you guys, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it coming.
All right, okay, thank you guys. Yeah, I'll just work on tearing this.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I had one job.
Deal well.
Oh, God.
Is this your uniform?
Oh, no. It's you guys. All right, thank you. Got all my stuff.
Got his there too? Oh. All right, planning and zoning, public hearing. Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2019-02.
So last month, when we had this on the agenda, you were meeting as the Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, this month, you are meeting as council. So this is where you make your, first if there's any comments from people, and then make the first reading.
And this is the one that was numbered -01.
Correct.
Yeah, so now it's -02, that's correct.
All right.
So, this is the first reading. I would make a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance 2019-02.
Was there anybody in the public who had any input? Oh.
I was just gonna mention about the dual numbers for that particular thing. And I left that in a packet for you guys to show that it was indeed 2019-2 rather than the 2019-1.
And since this is the first reading, my motion stands.
Okay.
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Presentation from Amanda, Pat, and Karma.
Hi. Pat's not here,
He's working on
They're-
equipment, so, in fire school. Well, what we're asking is permission
I was letting you pass it.
to host a public event downtown here between, let's see, Broad
Broad
and
and Dakota Street.
For water fights. Has anyone been to a water fight before? Used to be pretty popular here in town, and so we kind of like to bring them back in local communities. We've invited Hudson, Hayward, and Beersford to come over and join us, just as a training exercise, but we kind of like to make this a little bit more formal by, if you're, with your permission, to block off those two streets and the potential for the Alcester Bar to sell canned beverages. I think the feeling behind the blocking off the street would go along with containing anyone walking out with an open container. And that's basically what the request is for.
So you would want to do from Broad Street
To Dakota.
to Dakota.
Just on Second
I
Street.
know, I actually, did I put Broad?
It says
Iowa, I want just Iowa, just the one
Oh,
street,
Iowa.
just the
Okay.
one block. We actually had maybe even thought to do a show and shine in addition to it, and we had talked about that before, maybe in chamber. But we don't have enough time to plan that, but maybe future events like this. I know that Treasure Fest days were a big deal in Alcester, and we kind of like to bring back that family evening entertainment that everyone can enjoy. I know the firemen would be willing to work with kids and allowing them some playtime too with the water fights.
Okay, so now your area is Iowa to Dakota.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
okay,
one, sorry. And it's on the map. Did you get a,
I did not.
okay.
Oh, there's, I hear there's another extra.
Currently, the firemen are testing out their pump and all their equipment to even make sure that we can do this. I know that we'll borrow it if you guys grant us and it doesn't work, but some of the older firemen like Todd and Barry Hughes are willing to support this event and make sure that it goes off in an organized.
So how do you support the keg that's on a wire?
They have two large poles, so the keg goes in between the two, and then one team pushes it this way, another one pushes it this way.
So the poles are just temporary?
Stationary, yep, temporary, yep. Actually, one's a little shorter than the other, and that's what they're looking at right now because Alcester's not flat.
Should be a home field advantage or something.
Yeah, right. Right, I think the sun will be perfect at that 4 o'clock time, so that way we can keep it.
And let people just kind of bring their chairs and sit on the sides and watch and kind of make it a fun family day.
Sure.
So,
What, do we need a motion to do this?
yeah.
I just wanna make sure that it's okay.
Block off the street, I'm sure.
Block off the
And
street
then
and
the
allow
open
Teresa to
permit.
sell. Just within that time period, the fire department would clean up 100% of the area, leave it better than the way that we found it.
Do we need any type of a special permit for the beer?
That's what I was gonna ask. It used to be, we would do this and the city gave the fire department a temporary permit, just for the one period of time. I don't know what we need to do.
We have given a temporary permit when we did, the
Father's
car
Day?
show.
Yep.
Yep, the Father's Day car show.
And this would
And we
expand
ended
maybe
in
your
the
area?
space.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe expand your area, because I know that you had a beer garden, but just to block off that area and allow people to sit on the side of the street and not be stuck to one.
I mean, you're talking block off, Carmen, you're probably putting up a snow fence or something, so people
Yes.
are not going in and out.
Yes.
So will there be armbands so that they
If
know
you'd like,
which ones are?
If
can
you'd
get
like, we
some.
could do that. We
Well, I
could.
just was.
And I was just thinking with Teresa already having the license
Yeah.
and also having the ability to do that, we could pay for the wristbands, so that way she's carding and,
I was thinking in Beersford, when they have the big thing downtown, they always
They
have
do.
armbands, that's why I was just thinking of that.
That way it can't get passed off to anyone, so
Right?
we can do that for sure.
That's a good plan.
that-
And it takes a lot of the heat off you. I mean, you just look and you see.
Right.
Some
Yeah, I think
hopping
there is
cones or
an
something.
ordinance.
I can find out.
Chief can give a permit, I believe, I read through that at one point.
I really expect this to be a family event. It's not gonna be like a street dance, there's not gonna be that many people, but we would love to grow it. And, you know, the fire department would like to be able to sell sandwiches, it's kind of around that supper time. Just to be able to provide, we have some donations, we'll purchase our own pork, but we have chips and water donated. And just the ability, there's something here in town when the weather's nice, for families.
And it would be Father's Day weekend as well, the 15th.
I would make a motion that we allow the Alcester Volunteer Fire Department water fights to take place June 15th this year from 4 PM to 7 PM approximately.
And you'll also, if that's what you'd like, you would also need to include in that motion then that, they can have a one-time liquor or beer permit, good for those hours, or if you wanna add an hour on the
Right.
front for setting up, and then, waiving the fee.
Okay, yes, my motion would also include the special use beer permit, and we would waive the fees for such as a donation from the city, I guess.
Wonderful.
That would be my motion.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you
You're on.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Well, thank you for planning
Yeah.
this stuff and bringing it to happen. It's awesome.
We wanna do more stuff like this. The fire department appreciates your support, and they put in a lot of hours in doing some of these fun expo events, really, makes them feel like they're supported back. Thank you.
Well, thanks for what you guys do, appreciate it.
Now we're off to fire school. Thank you again for also supporting that too.
Yeah, I heard four new
We have so
people are
many,
involved in that.
we have so many new young members, Axel
good.
Erickson being one of them, and we just wanna keep they wanna do stuff, so let's
Yeah.
just provide opportunities for them to train and do fun things too.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Public input.
I have input. Vickie Larsen. Most of you know about the FOIAs on the ballots. In the packet that I gave you toward the back, that I do have the ability to look at the ballot applications per Secretary of State Christine Lehrkamp. You'll see that. So I'd like to view those on Wednesday morning if possible. The other thing is that the general pool rules, I don't see the pool rules up at the pool. They were not up last year. We have some things that are going on. I videotaped last year. Kids are coming down that slide head first. That's a big no-no. And also, there is a hose running from wherever the water source is up the slide. It's running across the concrete mat. That's a danger too. So we need pool rules explaining that you can't go down the slide head first, absolutely not. And find a different way to provide water to that slide without draping a hose across the concrete mat.
Okay.
With respect to the absentee ballot, it's my understanding that as long as a list is provided.
Yeah, so I called Secretary of State's office too, and I looked at the statutes, and whoever it was I talked to, I can't remember, her name's in an email, but she said that we didn't have to provide it, so, and then when I looked again after Vickie brought it to our attention and cited some statutes, I think she's right, so no harm in providing those to Vickie. And we'll make sure that we do. Please let us know if we don't.
Okay.
I will say just real quick for the benefit of the public and the council, we looked into this pool rule issue last year. Certainly is a concern that the kids are going down head first, and maybe we need to, is the kids going to the pool already?
Yeah.
That's frigid. But certainly an issue we need to talk with our lifeguard staff about if there are kids going down head first. My understanding last year was that pool rules were posted. They were posted on the door to the bathhouse. Information was provided to our insurance carrier, who then contacted the city and contacted me about why we didn't have pool rules. And I contacted the pool, and rules for everything, including the slide, are posted on the bathhouse doors. I don't know if that's the case this year, but that was the case last year, so I wrote a letter to our insurer letting them know that we had posted rules. That was the end of the issue last year. I don't know if we want to consider putting them up somewhere other than the door, but I know we had rules last year, and I hope we have them this year.
The pool rules are posted. They're not the big hand-painted sign that you're used to seeing.
That's the one I was looking for.
They are computer generated and laminated. So, and the gals were in on Thursday and we laminated them, and I have not personally walked through the pool bathrooms to say that, but I'm going to assume that they are up, but I will confirm that.
So all we gotta do is tell the insurance company we got them posted.
Do we do the thing with the baskets for guests' clothing? Do we have baskets?
The pool rules that are in that packet are, I got those from Canton. I called Beersford, and they were gonna get back to me on that. But that's where those pool rules, and it's a standard thing, particularly on the slides. You don't go down head first. And Canton said that they had Beersford said they had a person at the top of the slide and at the bottom of the slide on duty. So kids going down the slide. And that's what I was told by.
Our slide is not anywhere
Yeah,
near
we
the
can't-
height
yeah,
of
yeah.
Beersford slide. Or
This was Beersford giving me the information on the slide that they sold to us. So,
Okay.
there's not room for another person to stand at the top of the slide we have currently.
It's impossible. But
but you've been advised and it's your choice.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Legal update, cemetery,
Okay, gang, so here's where we're at on the cemetery. Larry Anderson has provided me with a bunch of documentation. I think the oldest stuff does go back to 1879. There are 3 parcels that came in, and then they got turned into 2, and so now it's 1 cemetery. And I tell you that to tell you, I have been drafting an ordinance for us to, my recommendation is that we bring it into the city by warranty deed and the passage of an ordinance at one time. So the ordinance I'm drafting does that, and it also, and we can edit this any way we want to, but it also vests control of the cemetery per the, whatever the statute is that allows us to create a municipal cemetery. It vests control in the council. It then delegates that authority to what I'm gonna call the cemetery board, and gives us, as a council, the power to take that authority back anytime we want to. Larry has given me the prices for current spaces and headstones and installments and all those types of things. So that's incorporated in there. One of the problems I'm having with the legal descriptions is the larger portion of the cemetery was originally described by meets and bounds, and this took me back to high school shop class. Most of these things are not described by meets and bounds, so they've got like rod lengths, which are, I think, 2 1/4 foot or something strange, so I
A
don't.
rod?
Yeah.
16 and a half.
Yeah, there you go.
There's
Oh,
one
there's
I
our
have
scroll.
from 1879.
Some of it's also not readable, so I say that to say to you that today when I was down in court in Union, I went through with the Register of Deeds how to properly say this legal description, because if we don't get it right, I don't think we technically bring it into the city. So that will be written in the warranty deed, which will be ready for you at the next meeting, and it will be in the legal description of what we're bringing in. I plan to just continue to call it Pleasant Hill Cemetery. The stuff that is up to you is, do you want to have the council control this and be the cemetery board? Do you want a separate cemetery board? How many people do you want to be on the board? I've got 5 people right now for 1, 2, 3, and 5-year terms. We can change those to anything we want. The other thing that we need to consider is the ordinance also says we are taking all assets and liabilities of the cemetery association, so that'll be the mowers and those things. Those will become city property. I think that the board will function similarly to a department, and what I mean by that is we'll probably need a separate line item budget, and it'll all cash flow, so it pays for itself. But much like the city golf course owns and takes care of its own mowers, similar thing will happen with the cemetery. And then the last piece of that is the 2 cities that I've really looked at that I think have the best ordinances are Yankton. In Yankton, the commission runs it and they delegate the day-to-day operations to the Parks and Rec folk. I think they have a separate kind of within the Parks and Rec department. But the other one is Hot Springs. And Hot Springs, the finance officer handles payment for plots and those types of things. So something to think about, and I will draft language for both, and we can mix this and match, is do you want a superintendent that I think would basically fill the role of Larry Anderson right now? We can also call him a sexton. Or do you want the finance officer to be responsible for receiving payment for a burial plot and putting that in a separate account? And then in that vein as well, I think Alcester's perpetual care, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we will get some money, and under perpetual care statutes, it's kind of like your IRA. You can't touch the principal, absent some certain things. Municipalities don't have to do that. But I do think it'd be a good idea to figure out how we're gonna set up that cemetery fund so that there's money in it for the cemetery and nothing else. I think your ordinance should probably also say money that comes in for the cemetery, if you're selling a plot or whatever, doesn't go to the general fund. It can only be used for cemetery purposes. But that's where we're at with that. Those should all be ready next meeting for you to review and kind of decide what you want. The regulations, the last piece I'll say, the regulations that I have for the cemetery from Larry at this time, I'm sure there are a bunch of rules that were followed, then not followed, then followed again in some form or fashion in this scroll. Hot Springs has a pretty comprehensive set that we should probably borrow from. But I mean, they get into the details of like, we don't have funerals on Sundays or Memorial Day, or I don't know that we need to be that comprehensive, but you know, they've got a grave digger and you have to have your notice to bury 48 hours in the winter if it's frozen. I don't know how, I think we need to be that specific, but I mean, it's all been kind of.
I don't think we need to be that specific.
Okay.
Can't we draw on the previous board's experience? And now, the reason I say that, you mentioned terms and everything for these board members. Do those coincide with what they had before?
Well, so.
We don't have terms.
Yeah, so.
It's how long do you want to volunteer to be on
Yeah,
board?
so here's kind of where we're at with that. The ordinance that I've written, basically says that the current, rules and bylaws of the Pleasant Hill Cemetery Association remain in effect to the extent that they can be under law. And unless and until changed by the city council, then right under that, we list whatever we want to do differently. There currently is no, I call Larry kind of the association president, but like, then there's a lady that takes care of the finances, but he hasn't found me any documents from pre or post World War II at least that we can find yet that like line out who's who in the zoo with that.
Right.
So, that was kind of my fix for that is if it's in the scroll, then it's still good until we change it. And
Well, and some of the first things that they even discuss here are, these officers are elected, and financial secretary, I mean, so-and-so, treasurer, I mean, so those are spelled out, but I guess that's.
Almost everyone that's on the board is a second generation board member. So all of us that are on the board have parents that were on the board. And now our parents are no longer living, and so now we are board members.
you know, and
In perpetuum,
Yeah.
yeah.
well, it's, you know, so I do foresee an instance where 20 years down the road, we may very well have nobody want to participate on this. And I don't know what that's the risk that we take.
How many
by
board
assuming
members
this.
are there now, Pat?
I think we have 6.
I guess that's what I was asking is, are we changing this to the point where all of a sudden now we've only got 5? Well, why did they have 6? Was it because they needed to fill position X, Y, and Z? I don't know. But I think that would be a really good question for him to say, explain to us, why did you have this board and this number of people, and is there merit or not? I mean.
Yeah, you know, I would say that a large part of the board's job is gonna be volunteering to literally maintain the cemetery. And if the board wants to vote to hire, you know, little Johnny from high school to mow, that's something they can do. And if the council says, we don't like that and our role as overseers of the cemetery because it's gonna spend too much of the care funds, you've got the ability to yank that away.
You don't think hiring of staff out there should be something that the council approves?
You certainly can. And I mean, that may be something you want to do. The 2 models that I've looked at are, again, are Yankton that controls everything, and then they kind of delegate to the Parks Department. And then the other one is Hot Springs that just created a board, and they're responsible for you know, it's city money and city stuff, but they're kind of responsible for, I kind of analogize it to the golf course. I mean, the golf course has a budget and staff and they run their own program.
I guess I see this as just another department.
Yeah.
So we should have another committee, chairman and 2 members for the cemetery that we have like for budget and finance and
Yeah.
golf and
Whatever,
streets and water and whatever. And then, in addition to those 3, then we could figure out how many do we wanna have. Maybe we wanna have 4 other people that are elected or volunteers or appointed or
Yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely.
So we have an odd number when it comes to voting for something.
Yeah, you could do that. I think that'd be a great way to go. One of the things that I fear, or I don't know, but it could be an issue. My buddy Andy McCann is the undertaker in Canton, and the Lions Club, we went out and trimmed a bunch of trees at Forest Hill. He got volunteered at a meeting he wasn't at to be the new sexton for that cemetery, and they've got some plots where they don't know if it's John Johnson or Andy Anderson or Billy Bob Joe. I mean, their stuff is a mess. So I don't know if we have any of that, like if our records are good.
There is a few problem areas. We have tried to correct them every time we find them. Obviously, the older part of the cemetery, the late 1800s, early 1900s, we can't guarantee, but we also don't sell plots in that area because we just don't know.
That's our only real guarantee, we just stay away from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we focus now on selling plots on the north because that was pretty much untouched, and now we have stones up there.
Good records and.
The other thing that this will do, by bringing it into the city, which you already know though, is there's certain stuff that the finance officers, additional things that she's gonna have to do with respect to money, and, I think that probably the best person, other than a board composed of people who handles this to take care of records and managing those records, would be the finance officer. But that is a benefit of a board other than a committee, is you've got a dedicated group of people who maintains the record and does that. But I mean, the short answer is I can come up with several options and we can mix and match, and I don't think a committee
So
like.
you're talking about a sexton or superintendent,
Yes.
a treasurer to bring in and disperse money,
And that could be the
a
finance
records
officer.
keeper or a recorder
Mhm.
to keep all of this. And is there another officer that we have now that we would need?
I don't
Just
think
a-
so.
Just a general board member.
I don't think so. A lot of those board members, Pat, are kind of doing all things, right? Aren't they? Mowing and.
We help whenever is needed, like, if there's trees that, like we have a storm and trees come down or branches come down, we'll all go out and try to make short work of it. But Larry is, because he's the active person mowing in Charlotte, Larry's the one that decides when we're gonna have a meeting. He draws up the agenda, we meet. Larry gets the bills, but he gives all the bills to Deb, and Deb is the treasurer, and so she hands out all of the checks, or, the payment checks for salary and stuff
So who collects the sale
of the plat.
receipts?
Larry does that, because you actually get a deed, and so Larry will generate a deed and give to the person who purchased the plot, and then he'll bring the money to Deb, and Deb deposits it.
And Larry was doing a lot of tax stuff that we're not gonna need to do anymore because it's gonna be municipal property, but that's kind of why I'm building this thing from the ground up a little bit, and we had the discussion at one point about how if you're gonna be like a city council member, we probably can't be paying you to mow out there as well. So part of I think advantage of maybe having a board is that we would have people that have been doing all those other things that aren't gonna change, like deeds and keeping those records, doing that as a board, and the finance officer, on behalf of the council, is managing and controlling money and assets.
There isn't a problem though with the sexton or the treasurer getting paid to mow if they do that work.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but if we had if the day-to-day, what I'll call the day-to-day operations, to the extent that there really are for the cemetery, if the day-to-day operations were run by a committee, I guess you'd have to hire somebody else to mow and do that kind of stuff, which we could
Because the
do.
committee couldn't do it. The members of the committee shouldn't be hired to do that.
I think you could volunteer all day long to mow. I just don't think that the committee should, be running the cemetery and then deciding who gets paid to.
Assuming that these
Mow it
committee
and
members
do it
are,
themselves.
say for instance, council, aldermen,
Right.
that's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and that was what I understood,
Is
Dave.
that what
is
you're
you were
basing
thinking?
No, I guess I was talking about the
See-
sexton
See, that's what I'm
Is the
saying, the
sexton
sexton
or
is
the
not
treasurer
an alderman.
or,
They can do whatever the heck, we can pay them
Yeah.
$1,000 a month,
Yeah, you
if we
could.
can afford it.
You could have a committee of 3 like you do for the police department, and they could hire Larry Anderson to keep records and mow,
yeah.
and, yeah.
Okay.
So those people can get paid, we as.
We can,
as
yes, I
aldermen.
understand that.
Yeah, that's the only thing he was trying to point out.
Okay.
Sorry for my inarticulateness.
The one request when we had our initial conversation is that the board stay with us at least long enough for this transition to take place. Once the council learns how to run a cemetery, we'll be fine. But, and I'll talk to Larry, I visit with Larry quite often, and seeing how Pat's a board member already, we just need help with this transition.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to Larry about that.
Yeah, he's been real helpful with me too, kind of explaining what they do, and, but I think an ordinance that, kind of sets out how we're supposed to operate would probably, doesn't have to be super detailed, but I think we all know at this point, the more detail, the better. And then I think that the one thing I did set up in there too is that you can change fees by resolution. That's just easier.
Black and white, no gray areas.
Try to stay away from the gray.
Yeah.
So currently, we're not prepared for any kind of a motion tonight
No.
because of.
No, I still have to figure, and I apologize
We
for
won't have
that.
anything on that till July. You'll have it ready for us next
Yes,
month.
I
Okay.
still have to figure out the legal description in
Okay.
terms that will meet muster for a modern legal.
Okay, thank you. Community cleanup discussion.
Yeah.
Where is it taking place at?
We have a couple of legal letters that Sam is going to be drafting.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk
Yeah,
about
go
those
for
two
it.
properties?
Go for
So, Mr. Kezar's property and Mr. Noid's property, we're gonna be applying, I've talked with Jeff Fillingsness, we're gonna be applying for an inspection warrant to go in and actually look at those properties. How that needs to happen is, we've done this for a couple different communities. We're gonna send an official letter from the city requesting allowance on their property to inspect. We will give them a certain time to respond. I think in Salem, we did 10 days. They declined to respond. An affidavit to the court from Jeff Fillingsness explaining the scenario and situation. This picture of this, what appears to be a cistern that's caved in will probably go along with that. Jeff sends it to Circuit Judge Tammy Byrne. She makes a simple probable cause determination that there's a hazard to safety, public, whatever, and then she issues the warrant. Jeff can go in and inspect then. Jeff can't kick the door in with that warrant, but, he can go in and inspect if it's open or.
Where's the Noid property?
It's the small trailer across the street,
204 Offstad.
across the street from, like Marlin Chicken.
Oh.
Okay. How about the house up on Iowa with no siding?
We've been in communication with that owner. We did receive a letter and he did not respond to that letter. And so I'm assuming Jeff will be visiting with you on that one as well. That gentleman got a building permit, said all this work was going to be done, and that was what the building permit was based off of. And then, some work was done, but none of it was on the outside. And now that building permit has since expired. And so the letter that was granted to him said, your building permit is expired, and this and this and this and this needs to be completed.
Is there a deadline?
There was a deadline, and that was passed.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Have any other properties that have had letters, are they outside of their time limits?
I have one other letter that was, there's two more letters that are out there. One gave us a schedule of when things were going to be completed, and I'm sure the rain is part of the problem on that one, and that would be the Haas property down here. Although I did see he was here over the weekend working on stuff, so that property should be completed by the end of the year. Or
What do you
the end
mean
of this.
completed? Cleaned up totally?
Yes.
Straighten up.
Yes,
Okay.
By the end of the year?
correct.
Okay, because it's been.
Well, he's been ignoring us for 5 years.
Yeah.
The other property that I should have followed up on today, prior to the meeting, is the trailer on 6th and Broad. And that's the Paulson trailer. Or Union, sorry. And initially, they were given a letter and they came down to our office and told us that they had made contact with someone to remove the trailer. They just needed the load limits to come off on the roads. And since then, I have heard that the trailer is empty. All the belongings in there are taken out. So that's a good sign, but load limits are off the road, and so I'm not sure why.
They probably just don't wanna tear up their yard. Well, I'm serious. It's,
Yeah.
that's probably just a lot of wet, but
Okay.
maybe it needs to be done anyway.
So this has been the main focus, is to narrow it down to our most problematic areas, and then once those are addressed, then move outward.
Can Jeff, it'd be best if Jeff contact Paulson and say, let's get this done.
At least.
It's gonna be ignored, if we don't push them, they're gonna ignore this. They have been ignoring us.
Yeah.
How about vehicles that are no longer licensed?
I try to witness those, and every time I find them, I ask the police department to make sure that the license is indeed expired. And so far, I mean, if you have vehicles that you have seen and you want us to check out, let us know.
One south of Paul McKee's. I think the guy's using the Buick as a cat house.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
But it's
but I think
licensed.
that vehicle is still properly
It's
licensed.
got a red tag on it. Is that,
Well, I think,
He didn't have the right tag on it, but it is licensed.
Excuse me?
it is
He
licensed?
didn't have the right tag on it, but it's currently licensed.
Okay. It's currently,
You know, he's paid it and it just isn't on there yet or something, I don't know.
Red is this new
no,
one.
no, the new one, yeah. but
Red's
this
the
is-
new one, and orange, green, red, so I think it's an
Huh?
expensive.
The house next to you, what's,
Oh, that's coming down.
that is
is,
coming
yeah.
down.
and this one too then?
No, the county hasn't released this one yet,
This
so.
has to wait until after November before anything can be done here.
And I'm worried, when I feel like it's a little bit safer, I'm gonna have Jeff come over and we'll take the boards down and go through the house.
Take a look.
I go through it every year with Jeff. Last year, it was a little sketchy in the basement because we had so much rain. I can only imagine the
Oh,
basement
my.
this year.
Yeah.
so, but,
Well, the roof was caving in last summer, was it?
yeah.
The roof is
But at
already
least-
caving
At
in.
least the basement was in, 2 years ago, the basement walls were in good shape. Last year, they were not in good shape. So I'm worried this house is going to fall.
Started to cave in.
There was obviously people that had been in there, and Pat's concern was, you know, with not being boarded up, and the roof is caving in. If kids are in there, I mean, that's super dangerous, so you had it boarded up last summer.
Why
Fall.
not wait till November?
Yeah, there's some rule that says that they have to wait 6 months, and it's now started, so November is that 6 month period. I talked to,
Myron
yeah,
at the county.
So what about some of these properties where there's just
If you condemn
Trash.
something, you gotta wait 6 months.
and
I
weeds
think that's the whole
I
deal.
agree.
so high and they're not cleaning them up? So we
Sure,
have letters and tell
I haven't done
Tell
my
them to
mowing
clean
letters
their
yet.
yard up and whatever?
I haven't done mowing letters yet.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to go around and make a list, or will Jeff do that, or what?
If you guys want to
Okay.
generate a list, I will gladly take it and we'll do the paperwork.
Okay,
At least then, double check it with Jeff.
Mhm.
I mean, we can make a list right now and something can change and it all of a sudden is in compliance, so
yeah.
Right.
we don't wanna upset
And I-
anybody, but.
I was ready to do mowing letters and then some of the people that I had eyeballed mowed, so. I'm
They already
all right.
cleaned
Yeah, that's-
Okay,
So,
you got anything else?
No, but, when that list gets generated,
Yeah, we'll get it done.
well,
Yeah,
I'll,
okay, you'll go with me? We'll-
yeah,
We'll
or
go
you'll go
around
with
and,
me, I don't know.
yeah, whatever. We're riding your old pickup.
Yeah.
Okay, all
I,
right,
I have an issue, Mayor.
okay.
Our new property up there where the polio used to be, and actually the cemetery too, is the same situation. There are a lot of volunteer trees growing up either along the fence or in the spruce trees. I would volunteer to take them down if I can get permission. And this will be a many months project, so it's not gonna be done next week. But I'm wondering, like in the pole yard, should the trees be piled in the middle of the gravel area with a burn permit next winter? Or should the red truck be there and the branches loaded up and taken to the dump?
Temporarily, they could be
Well-
piled, and then we still could throw them in the truck and haul them out to the dump.
Well, what it amounts to is they'd have to be cut up a lot differently.
Oh, I
If they're gonna
suppose.
be hauled away.
If we're gonna haul them, they'd have to be cut so that they can be.
So you're talking about volunteer trees, but evidently some of these have been volunteering for a long time, because if they're, I mean, what
Yeah,
You're
they're
talking
that
about-
size.
wow.
Some of them, 3 or 4 of them at the pole yard, and there's probably half a dozen at the cemetery that are, you know, I'd probably start with the smaller ones.
Yeah. So then your plan would be to paint that, I can't remember what.
Torn
down?
Yeah, they
RTU.
on the stumps. Kill them. Excellent.
Okay, so where does that finances come from to purchase the RTU Cordon?
How much is it gonna take?
About $20 a quart.
The $13.50 at our local store. I just checked today.
That's a pretty good deal.
It is.
It is.
You're gonna want
And it
half a
doesn't take
dozen
much.
if you're gonna do.
No, it really doesn't take that much to paint
Paint
each
the area
stump.
where you cut.
I guess it depends on how many thousand stumps you got, or, I mean, you got a bunch that are this big around, that's gonna take a drop, you know, and just paint it on and, I mean, a quart, 2 quarts?
Well, I mean,
No,
where's the money come from? Is this cemetery money, you know, come out of the cemetery fund, or just come out
Well, if
of
it's at the cemetery, it should come out of the cemetery fund, because right
Okay.
now, that's not,
so I could have Larry get some for me when I
Yeah.
start? He and I talked about this project.
yeah.
And the other one, who controls the,
We own the pole yard.
Yeah, we own the pole yard,
Yeah.
so that'd be city property.
which department is that?
That'd almost be like a parks.
I would put it in park
Parks,
also.
okay. So if I get permission to do that, I can start on that.
You need a motion?
Does anybody have any problem with giving Dave permission to do this?
No.
I'd say that you've got permission.
Yeah,
All right, well,
okay.
you see some branches stuck around, then you know what's happening.
If you need help.
Guy with a chainsaw running around.
Okay, Alcester ambulance. Discussion on water usage at ambulance at no charge.
I think it's a good idea not to charge them. Geez, Mike, what do they use, 3,000 gallons a month, less?
They're just right at the, yeah, they're under 1,000.
Well, I brought it up and I'll make the motion to not charge the ambulance for water,
I'll second.
Effective when?
July 1st.
Who seconded it? Oh, Melissa?
July 1.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Swimming pool update. Lonnie isn't here. Okay, we've already, our street and swimming pool update, sorry. Street updates, Lonnie isn't here. We've already discussed swimming pool earlier.
Have we got
So,
any idea about
Any
the
more on that?
grinding and everything, or?
Well, you probably noticed, Lonnie rented a cold cleaner, just a smaller unit, and he really hit all of our problem spots, so there are no cones on the streets any longer.
Yeah.
And so he ground it ground up really fine. Dale brought in his skid loader, so the two of them worked together, packed it down, and it was right before we got all that rain, which is a benefit, because the rain hardens it up.
Yeah.
And I drive over that on 2nd Street in front of the church there, and it's great. It is not spongy at all.
Not all of them are as smooth.
No.
No, I know that on 1st Street down here, like in front of one of the apartments, there's
Yeah.
a little wave action, which I'm assuming at some point in time Lonnie will go back over and smooth them up, but yeah. He's been busy with the pool, the last 2 weeks, so that's where he has been.
Loiza's got us penciled in for the, was it July
15th.
Loiza's got us penciled in for that. I told, was it Mike? I talked to the guy there, about we'd like him to sign something saying they'll be here. So right now they're committed to coming here. We also, the way we do this thing in terms of how much we're hiring them and amount per square yard or foot or whatever, we worked off, the law allows us to work off, I believe it was Marshall County's bid, which is the same bid that Centerville had worked off of for they're doing the same thing. So that statute that allows you to do that, get around bidding it out if you can work off another bid, says we've got to have the specifications for the project, which they do the same thing. They all do all these full depths the same way. And then the bid notice and the acceptance from that county. So we've got those 3 documents. I have not sent them to Pat, but I will send them to her. So we're covered separate and apart from the bid law in there. Last we talked to them, they said they'll be here right after, or right before chip seal.
Okay,
Unanimous.
thank you. Water, wastewater, if Dale wasn't here, was there anything on that?
The only thing, we're still running at a really high rate. So, Dale, we normally are like 80,000. I don't know what his measurement is, and we're at 500,000 a day that he's processing down there. So what he did, let's see, what he did over the weekend was he shut off a valve, so any new stuff that was coming in immediately went to the reservoir on the hill. And that was so he could lower the levels inside the plant itself. And by doing that, he actually did get that to be almost empty. But he gained 6 feet. So that's how fast it's coming in. So, so now he's gonna start working on releasing that from the reservoir back down to start treating it before he can shoot it out, so. That's what's happening at the sewer plant.
Okay. Police Department.
Yeah, you guys got stats. It's the same as always, it's busy. The weird thing is, you know, we typically end up with 50 cases on a month. The problem is, there might be 10 cases we're working on from 2 months ago, you know, so there's a lot of court, a lot of investigation, a lot of everything on cases that we're not even generating for the month. Austin and I are both right at our year for our full-time date, so just want to let you know that we're, I don't know, anniversary date, I guess, for us, being full-time here. Appreciate you guys working with us and helping keeping the community safe, so. We did get another donation from the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office had an older LiDAR gun, which is it's a laser radar. There you can really pinpoint cars. They go really well in traffic court. If the judge sees that it's LiDAR versus radar on the car, there's typically no argument because you pinpoint right on the license plate. We do have to get it certified, so I might wait till next budget year. It's about $190 to get it sent off, and then it's certified for our use here. But that was donated by Sheriff Limoges from the Sheriff's Office. They have a newer one. This one was just sitting on a shelf, so they donated it to us.
How long is that certification good for? I mean, is it
The way
indefinite?
Austin did the research, and that's different than our car radars. Our car radars have to be done every year. This one sounds like it's good for quite a while. But with everything that we're looking at this year, I think I'll probably wait till next budget year, just because we're a little tight. Yeah. So if you see Dan, say thanks, because that's a $1,500 deal. So, I know I sent out emails, everybody except for Lance, because Lance doesn't have email, but the demo charger we've had for almost 2 weeks now. It's a very nice car. It's spoiled me. Keyless entry, and stuff like that's really nice to have. But it's a very nice car. This one's kind of loaded up with some extra stuff. Again, I think they just try and spoil you in case they can get you to order more options than you typically would. I don't know if everybody got a chance to see that. I'm sure you've seen it around town, but.
Can we talk just for a minute about, and I don't even know what possibility there is, but I thought you alluded to the fact that this car was actually going to be for sale.
Yeah, so they run a demo car for 2 years, and then they actually, Dodge does sell those. Hard telling, this one's in really great shape. This one's been really taken care of. The nice thing is it's a demo car, but it typically goes to the chiefs of departments. They drive them, it's not really out on patrol a ton. We're using it because we're a small agency. But yeah, they do, after you demo that car, that representative will let me know when the car that I demoed is for sale. This one would be up probably in the next 6 months for sale. The only problem then would be, Dan, it might be in Milwaukee for sale, and it's been there for a few months, and you'd want to go look at it. You
Absolutely.
really would.
I understand.
And they may transport it in if you're interested in buying it, but.
Well, the only reason I'm even mentioning this is, you're spoiled because it's loaded for bear.
Yeah, it's a very nice car.
It is loaded, so.
Yeah,
there's some benefit there that.
How many miles?
Yeah, I screwed up. Originally, Dave, I thought there was 1,600 miles when they showed up. That was the trip meter. I just couldn't read it right. There's actually like 9,000 miles on the car. But again, some of that was, I think it came from Illinois to us. So a lot of that's transport mileage too, The transport guy put like 1,100 miles on it getting it here, so.
It might be 12, 15,000 by the time this is for sale.
Sure. could be hard telling. But she said she would keep me in the loop, and if it came open, and if we were interested, she'd let me know, so.
Is that something you might be interested in if the price is comparable?
Yeah, if it wasn't road hard and put up wet and the price was good, yeah. We could obviously keep it as an option, so, if it comes open.
You never know, could have bullet holes in it by the end.
Yeah, very well could, yeah.
That might be totaled out. I mean,
Yeah.
2 weeks after we get rid of it, it might be.
Yeah, I could hit a
Dust.
deer tonight.
Well, yeah, anything could happen.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, knock on
No,
wood.
let's not do that, okay?
That being said, right into I was looking at when we go to order a charger. A little bit of a hiccup there. I don't know if we really want to get into it. The latest date, I'll just do the condensed version. The latest date that we can order off the 2019 Dodge Charger price is August 6th of this year. The problem being, Dodge Chargers are coming out of the factory a little sooner than later now. The state bid sheet says 120 to 150 days. They're kicking them out at 90 days. So when I talked to Dodge, he thought if I ordered at the latest date, the car would show up mid-November. And I was like, well, I don't have budget until January of 20. So can the car sit at your lot for a month and a half? And they don't want to do that. I don't understand how their process works. I said, well, the state bid sheet says 120 to 150 days. Why is that different than your state bid sheet? They, other than just saying the cars were coming out of the factory faster than the trucks, that's all he could give me.
Okay, that's to order a 19 Charger.
Yeah,
So
so
we could wait till the 1st of October and order a 20 Charger.
the problem is, Lance, the price they
Higher.
set. And when we looked at that price sheet, it was on the 19 prices, so I talked with Melissa and we thought about, maybe do we just order at the latest date we can and then see when the car comes in and hopefully they're backlogged towards the end of the year, I don't know. And I asked, I said, why can't the car just sit on the lot until we get it? We'll get it the first part of January. And they said that they don't make a lot of money on state bid cars and they don't like to leave them sit. Kind of a weird deal, so we'll probably look at it a little bit more. It's not dead in the water, but
As we get closer.
yeah, give it a little bit here and talk to them again. So just wanted to give you guys a quick update on that. May 10th, we had a school interest day. It went really well. We did it with ambulance and fire. Kids rotated through all of us. It was a busy day. National Guard didn't show up, so we took all the extra kids. So we got the ones that didn't want to see the cops, but yeah, they came through Austin and I anyways, so it was busy. So that went well though. And it was good to be at the school. So got a state DCI shoot coming up in June. Austin and I are both going to try to attend. It's in Vermillion. I know it's tough to do with both of us there, but it's free ammo, and the state puts it on, and it would qualify us again for the year. So
That competition?
it's not a competition. It's just
Qualification.
a free qual for the year. Yeah. And any way you look at it, it's free shoot. It's good to shoot. So.
When did you say it was?
Yeah, in June, like June 12th, we're gonna try and attend that. It'll be in the morning, so. Want to let you guys know we did, was it in May? We executed the search warrant down here, and we did have to break a door down. Problem being, the judge signed our no-knock search warrant. I gave them way too long a time. They didn't answer the door. I had to take the door. Problem being, the people that lived there did not own the property. They rented it. Of course, the guy that owns the property is not exactly ecstatic with us, but we had a job to do, and we had a signed search warrant from a judge. So just wanted to let you guys know. I don't believe that we're, held accountable to pay for the door that we had to take. I mean, we had to execute our search warrant. I just wanted to let you know that he asked me if the city was going to cover it. Every agency that I've worked for before this date, we never have. And I asked if he could keep his, what do you call it, when he,
Security
Deposit.
I asked if he had a
Yeah.
security deposit, he did have some that he could keep. He didn't know if it'd cover the whole door or not, but,
Really, it's the renter's responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sue the tenant.
There you go.
I just wanted to let you know I had a guy in my office who wasn't very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he, I did notify him that night on scene, he came to the scene, but thought I'd let you guys know, you know. It's not something we typically do every month. We've only had to take one door since I've been here, so.
If he shows up again too, lucky for me, cause I won't be this guy's attorney now, I'm telling you this.
Yeah.
If there's any criminal charges, the state on behalf of the property owner can ask for the restitution for the door.
Okay.
So I, that, you know, just
Yeah,
give him that nugget and,
I could kind of veer him in that direction as
Yeah.
well. That's a good idea, so I will do that. I just wanted to let you guys know, so. That's where I'm at. I guess you guys have anything for me or any questions?
Anybody got anything? Okay, thank you. Golf course updates, David.
Oh, we're having all sorts of irrigation issues, but gradually getting them rectified. We luckily haven't needed much irrigation. We're thinking about pumping water out of the pond. Not really, but it has an overflow that sometimes keeps up. We're doing some seeding on tee boxes. The greens are looking good. The fairways, the ones that aren't underwater or have water standing on, we're doing great. We've got half of number 4 fairway is really wet. It's the one down by the pond, and apparently the water level must be about the same as the pond. But we've had a couple good weekends. We're open for a couple good days. We're open for some more now this weekend when the weather starts changing. Probably have to start doing some fogging the thing for bugs. They're gonna carry small women away. Other than that, we're fine.
You need a one-time burn permit?
Yeah, we're getting a big pile of branches up there. We
Okay.
managed to get them taken care of.
Well, I would make the motion for a one-time burn permit at golf course to burn trees and brush.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Groundskeeper.
Coordinate that with make sure the fire department knows what's going on, so. We finally found a person to come out and mow. I'd like to make a motion to hire Curtis Gilbertson at $10 per hour. He'll work no more than 30 hours a week, or 60 hours in a pay period.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Is this somebody that you interviewed or?
Yes. Landon and I interviewed him.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finance officer.
Person?
Okay, it has been a busy month in our office. As I mentioned earlier, the pool is open. It opened officially on Saturday. We had stocked it with concessions, and they already called Wanda Saturday afternoon to refill the ice cream. And then our lifeguards came down today and got more ice cream because they were out yet again. Attendance must be good. So far, have not had any issues at the pool. We did have some damage happen at the city park. The police department is aware of it. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do to repair the damage.
So the brown,
The brown is the roof of the open shelter. They etched that in the ceiling or the roof of the open shelter.
Oh, the ceiling, yeah.
The
Yeah.
ceiling.
Underside.
Okay,
The green is a board on the picnic table.
okay.
And then the post is for the open shelter as well. Now, I don't know on that post if we could sand it and
I
get
think
that
you
out.
could sand the green and the sand. And
Okay,
the green is just gonna be wood colored.
yep, yep,
But
which I think we still have some more lime green paint, so if we sand it and, that's not an issue.
I think I've got a belt sander if you
Yeah, I
need.
do too.
Somebody, we can just get over there. Electricity is right there.
Yep,
You could sand that ceiling too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just,
I think it's just plywood.
I think so too. Yeah.
We also had, these active little youngsters, I did not know there was an attic to that, shelter, and they were up in the attic and drug out some Christmas lights, so they're just hanging right at this point. I need to go in and get rid of those.
they would be the same people that knocked all the lights out of the things that go around the
No, they're
poles.
different people.
You think you know who?
The police department has a pretty good handle on who did this damage that you're seeing in front of you, because they also mudded a car in town at the same time, so. And we had witnesses on that, so the police department is very much aware of this, and Chief Christie was going to visit with the families over the weekend, and I haven't followed up with him to see if he did that, but. While we're on that sheet, Axel emailed me right away Friday morning, and as he was driving by, the sinkhole collapsed at He's our spot.
You saw it go?
He saw it go. So he knew Wanda was gonna be out reading meters, so he took the pictures and he texted and he said, be careful when she goes to read those meters, cause her meter reader is not very far from that hole. So, and she doesn't wanna stand on those stairs. So, we did work with Mike because, I did not know if he was home or not, cause he hasn't been home a lot lately, and they were not home when it happened, but they are aware of it, and now they do have caution tape up. That was my big concern, is there was no caution tape up for the longest time, so, but now there is, so.
That has to be filled in pretty quickly, doesn't it?
I talked to Mike today, he came in, he said he was gonna call Scotty Pershing,
Oh.
so I hope that is the case, and I hope it is soon.
We had one of those in our yard the last time we had a wet spring.
And
10-foot deep.
he wasn't doing it any favors either by draining his eave spouts right over the hole. I don't know if you noticed that in one of the pictures, but the
Yeah.
eave spout drain is right there, so.
Well, the cistern collapsed itself because that lid was on top of the ground.
Correct.
Sure.
So the whole
Correct.
cistern collapsed.
The dental clinic is nearing done with their remodel, and they will be having a grand opening, which you have their flyer, on June 26th. And they weren't sure, about the whole closing the street and everything like that, so the actual presentation will be in the auditorium here. But you certainly can tour, there, if you would like, on the 26th.
I called them today and set up an appointment, and I asked them when they're gonna be open, and she said Thursday.
Okay.
So they're starting Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exciting. They went around on Friday with little goodie bags for all the businesses and letting them know what was going on, so. In May, we did the closed on Tuesday afternoon, and that is working out really well. We don't lock our office door, but we do keep it closed and we do not answer the phone. People still do want, they'll just walk in real slowly, and if they wanna give us money, we'll take it, so we don't turn them away, but at least we don't feel compelled to have to answer the phone, and it is working out nice. And I'm assuming, now, Wanda really enjoyed having Tuesdays, our door closed, because that gives her an opportunity to count the money and feel comfortable having money on her desk without it being exposed to the public, so. And I'm sure we'll be doing deliveries on Tuesdays with food and supplies to the pool. I have a gentleman working, doing 20 hours of community service. We have a list started for him. One of the things that he did get accomplished for us is he put new fresh wood chips on both signs of Welcome to Alcester, both the south and the north. He went out of town this week, he'll be back on Friday, and I'm gonna have him do all the flower beds in the park. Depot has been instrumental in weeding all of the flower beds, and she put preen down, and so now they're ready for the wood chips. So, we'll keep working with him. And our picnic tables arrived, they're in the gym, and I was unaware that they were going to come unassembled.
Oh, come on.
So, Mayor Tom happened to come in right after we started unboxing the tables, and so Mayor Tom worked with this gentleman, and they put together 3 of them, and it's going good. I think we have a good system down now, so when he comes back from his vacation, we'll get the rest of those finished.
Problem was figuring out the first one.
Yeah.
Once we got it figured out, the easy way to do it, they'll go together pretty easy now.
And nobody uses words and instructions anymore, it's all pictures.
Yeah,
Ugh.
those instructions, they don't make any sense.
No, they did not.
After they're assembled, they will fit out the door.
They're collapsible, just like, you know, what we use at the football field for tailgating. So it's just that we have to mount the legs and the benches. The garbage cans that I ordered for the park, they were supposed to be delivered this afternoon, but the gentleman was having a hard time getting roads that were open. He's in central South Dakota, so I think it'll be here Tuesday morning. Lonnie will have to do a little bit of updating on them, making the handles that Warren grabs on the side. He has to make those a little bit more sturdy, and then we'll be putting them in the park. So I suspect our metal tables will be coming either later this week or the first part of next week. And so those are gonna go down here on Main Street. We had our water tower inspected, and I sent out the report, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to look through it.
Pretty good news, really.
It really is. I mean, the things that they documented were things that I was aware of because of Axel going up there and replacing the light bulbs. The ladder system is really nasty.
Yeah.
There's some rungs that are just completely almost rusted gone. But they did reference that in there, that our ladder is in poor shape. But what they did basically say, the exterior is in fair condition. They gave us an estimate of 3 years of useful life on that, and 8 years of useful life of the interior condition before any treatment will need to be done. And so by treatment, I mean paint. And overall, the water tower has less than 3% of rust, which, given age, I think that's probably good as well.
Pretty good, huh?
So, the governor's house is arriving tomorrow. So, if you see people, tell them that we cannot park in the center of the street tomorrow morning. The house is scheduled to arrive around 11, and they're gonna come down 2nd Street and turn north on Iowa and be placed. When after the house goes by, then yes, parking can resume. And I did contact the Senior Citizen Center and Alcester, the drugstore. But I need to probably contact Pete's. I don't know if you're working tomorrow. Okay.
Well, I will go to work,
Okay.
whether there's anything to do or not.
Oh, okay. So just so you know, we can't park in this center. After the house goes by, then we can.
How about on the one-way street, are they gonna not park there?
Yes, Jamie was gonna take care of alerting the bank, because most of the people that park there are bank employees.
Right.
No, people that go to Custom Coils park there in the morning when I'm out walking.
Some do, but we can make sure that
There's a couple of them.
I mean, right at 7 o'clock, we'll just make sure everybody that's parked there
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great.
unparks.
That would be great if you could, yeah, let them know. I meant to get a sign
Do we
up.
know what time it's coming?
11 o'clock, around 11 o'clock. I don't know. I'm excited to see this house come cruising through town, so. And I will be out of the office next week, so if you need something, I will not be.
I see something here that says annual budget, $12,592. Is that how much we need to set aside every year to maintain our water tower?
And the last time they did that, they told us our annual budget was like 9760, which is what I have been putting aside, so, yeah. They've increased
Next
it.
budget year, things will change.
About
Correct.
3,000 more, huh?
So, yes. Now, something else that we'll have to do, because this is our last year under contract with Owens. So I don't know, how we'll go about, this was a 20-year agreement that we signed with them, and so now it's done. I don't know if this is, something that we want to do again. I know what you and Tom had talked about, all these guys do is the inspection. The inspection is $900 a year, so it's not, and they only do it every other year.
Yeah.
So it's not something that needs to go to bid.
So it's $900 each year or $900 when they come?
Every other year.
Every other year.
Okay.
Yeah. I was frustrated with them until I understood the system, but I kept trying to get them to give me an estimate to clean the outside of the tank, and then finally it was impossible for me to reach this Donald, but Alex is the son, and once I got a hold of him, he told me they just don't do that kind of job. So that's where I found Pittsburgh Tank. And so Pittsburgh Tank has signed, we signed the agreement last month. We're on their schedule. I don't actually have an exact ETA when they're coming, but they will be the ones that will pressure wash the outside and clean that to the best of their ability, so. So that's, if we want to stick with Owens or we want to talk with Owens, and see what kind of an agreement we could do for the next batch of 20 years. If we want to talk with Pittsburgh, if we're happy with the job that they do, and we want to talk to both of them and see what their offers would be, we could certainly do that too. So you guys can think about that, and we'll talk about it after Pittsburgh does the job and see if we're happy with it. I will tell you, I'm impressed with Pittsburgh as far as contacting me. I signed the agreement, I sent it off to them. They sent me a letter and an email with all kinds of people's names and phone numbers if I have any questions through this process. So that was nice. So, but.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to hire Peyton Meyer as summer library assistant at $9.10 per hour.
That was done last month, or in April,
That was already done?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
April 15th meeting, I made the motion,
Okay.
Linda seconded, so we don't need that.
Okay, we don't need to do that. Motion to hire Bailey
Peterson.
Peterson as lifeguard at $9.10 an hour.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to approve Delane Fitbaum labor, and I think he gave us a labor estimate to put the roof on the
Park show.
the park shelter. $660.96. And I think that's a very reasonable price.
So, do we have an estimate of the cost for the steel?
Well, do you remember what that was?
I was like, no, not exactly. I want to say like 3,300.
I think it was less. I can't remember, right? Was it like 3,000?
That's what I think
Yeah.
it was, yes.
It was around $3,000 for the material.
I'll make a motion, we approve Delane Fickboom's labor estimate to install tin on the enclosed park shelter.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're gonna need a motion to approve the purchase of the steel. And I gotten the, estimate over at Haywarden, at the lumberyard in Haywarden, and I'll go back over there and get it ordered, and I'll make sure that we're within that price range.
What's that place up north of town that does steel?
They
Well,
don't sell.
Yeah,
They don't sell privately.
they don't do it.
Gotta be
only
a
through
contractor.
distributor.
Yeah,
I
you
think they
order,
ate too many small orders is what they did.
you order it through, yeah, through their lumberyard. Or they gave us several, but that was so close, I just ordered it from them. Or got the estimate from them.
Good idea.
We had budgeted 10,000 for the project, and And I really do believe it was less than 5. Even, we kinda estimated high on what we thought the
Yeah.
strips would be, and
Well, steel, and then you'll need fasteners and
Yeah, all the nails, well, they'll need nails to nail the,
furring strips.
frame strips down and then the screws. And I don't know how to
So-
figure the price on those.
So are
He'll
we-
have to help me with that.
So are we doing something more than just the steel? Are we,
and then we need 2 eave spouts, or we need eave spouts on both sides.
okay, so we're
Eave troughs
we're
or
approving
eave
the
spouts?
purchase of steel, fasteners, furring, lumber,
Yeah,
and
well, it's gonna need the nails and, yeah, gutter.
A gutter, there you go,
That was all on Shoneman's bid.
yes.
Well, I suppose you could make a motion as per Shoneman's bid, correct? I will make the motion to approve Shoneman's bid for the steel for the park shelter.
Was this just like a verbal
Correct,
bid?
correct.
What he did, we made a list and then he gave me the price per unit of each item. And then this is, I figured out how many, like a 14-foot piece of steel is 3 foot wide, got 36 feet, so we need 24 of them to go down. And so he gave me a price per each, so I just multiplied that times 24, and that's how I got the prices. And then the same way on the furring strips, and then he gave me a price on the ridge cap and the fascia and the drip cap.
Was all of that information written down anywhere?
Yeah, have you still got that in there?
Not-
So can we do this until we know?
Maybe we shouldn't even,
I don't think we can do it until we know for sure what they're actually gonna charge us, cause if it's more than 5.
Well, I'll go over tomorrow and I'll get the exact thing
It
from him.
was far less than what we budgeted.
Yeah,
We budgeted 10, and it came in less than that.
but if you wanna wait, I'll get it the exact number from him and then, we
So
can do
what's
it
the
next
threshold
month.
for bidding?
25,000 or 50,000.
Yeah, I think you can self-deal if it's under 5 is what you're thinking of.
Okay.
This should be okay. Do you have an approximate dollar amount, Mr. Mayor?
He said 3 to 3,500,
And
so.
you've already approved,
But that's just you doing the math, that's not them
So if
saying.
we
Right.
did it under 5.
Okay, I'll go over there tomorrow and I'll get the
you
exact.
already
Can we do
approved
that?
10?
In the budget,
Okay, you budgeted 10?
correct.
I think you can just,
we're good, Sam?
I think you can just approve the purchase of construction materials for,
Well, if it's clear outside, I won't even order it, but if it's within what we had talked about before, then I think we could go over it and order it, but that's up to you guys.
I think you
Say
can.
$3,000 to $4,000. I mean, somewhere in there.
I think you're okay with that.
So approve it up to 4,000.
Yeah.
Well, give them room in case
Five?
there's tax.
Up to
Okay, I
5?
started the motion, I will make the motion to approve the purchase of steel from Shoneman's, not in excess of steel and fasteners and furring strips and gutter and ridge cap, not to exceed $5,000.
I'll second that.
Those Melissa, you second, oh,
No,
Linda,
Linda.
okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion?
One question I have is, does anyone have a strong preference on color? I'm leaning towards white only because the chlorine house.
Now, the other one up there is white, so I told him white when I talked to him about it. Is that, okay. So any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Reminders and updates. Pat will be out of the office June 11th to the 17th. Women's salad luncheon at the golf course June 13th. Father Youth Golf Tournament June 15th.
that may not be happening if we don't get people to sign up for it.
That
Okay.
is correct, I just talked to Landon about that today.
There's no one has signed up yet.
Okay. Kurt Anderson Memorial Golf Tournament June 22nd. Swim lesson session 1 June 17th to the 28th and session 2 July 15th to the 26th. free green fees weekend, July 6th and 7th.
Who is, or was Kurt Anderson?
He worked at Southeastern.
Just
He was a
passed away.
council alderman for many years.
Was he, when did he pass away?
Recently.
2 months ago,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then it's not who I'm thinking, okay.
he was a local resident.
Grew up here in town.
Yeah.
He was only 65,
Hmm.
64.
Okay.
HRC update,
I have nothing.
okay. Updating volunteer roster for workman's comp. Motion to remove Brent Harms and Vern Johnson, add Katie Manning and Linda Talbot.
No, one person that I left on there, just, and you can answer how you want, do you still want to stay as a volunteer in HRC? I'm looking at
Talking to
you.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we wanna do what now?
Do you want to stay on as a volunteer for the HRC?
As a volunteer? I will, yes, I
Okay,
would, but
okay,
don't they have, you got?
We have a
now.
full, we'll have a
Okay.
full board, but all she's saying is, she left you on there currently.
Okay.
Do you wanna stay on
because-
there?
Yeah, well, no, not really, if,
as a volunteer.
Yeah.
Just as a volunteer?
oh, okay.
For the workman's
I would do
comp.
that, I would do that.
So the motion then I'm going to make is to remove Brent Harms and Vern Johnson and add Katie Manning and Linda Talbot to the volunteer roster for workman's comp.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2-1.
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session.
I will second Melissa's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're in executive session at 8:01.